I am Jamie Derr, and I'm a painter, singer, and poet.
Hi, I'm Chris Stafford, and this is AART, the podcast where we get up close and personal as we get to know women from around the world of visual arts. This is Season 2, Episode 30. My guest this week is the painter, singer and poet, Jamie Derr. Jamie says, I don't usually know what I'm visualizing until I see it emerge on the canvas, making me an intuitive artist. Jamie's portraits are both bold and nuanced, depicting characters known and unknown. Jamie was born in Providence, Rhode Island in 1981, one of 3 children to parents Deborah and Manuel Ribeiro. Her great-grandparents emigrated from Portugal in the early 1900s and established Sunset Bakery in Bristol, Rhode Island in 1929. Besides owning the bakery, her father Manny was also an artist and musician, which Jamie inherited. She started singing as a child, which led to a singing career right out of high school. She later earned a full Davis Scholarship and graduated from Wellesley School with a Bachelor of Arts, continuing to perform till her late 30s. Among her recorded songs under musical name Jamie LaPearl are Don't Want to Let You Go, Next to You, and So Torn, all of which are available on Spotify. At the age of 18, she had her daughter Leanna and worked as a makeup artist while continuing to write songs and performing. Jamie later transitioned to becoming a visual artist, focusing on landscapes and portraits in both watercolor and oil. She's a member of the Oil Painters of America, an artist member at the Rhode Island Watercolor Society, and was recently accepted as an exhibiting artist at the Providence Art Club. Jamie has received numerous international awards and exhibits frequently. She has an upcoming show in September 2024 at De Blois Gallery in Middletown, Rhode Island, and Greenville Library in Greenville, Rhode Island in December 2024. Jamie lives in Cranston, Rhode Island with her husband James, 2 dogs and a cat. Jamie, welcome to the podcast.
Good to talk to you.
Well, it's lovely to have you here, a Rhode Islander through and through. You have never strayed far from your roots there in Rhode Island.
No, but luckily it's a great place to be. So it's not as bad, but I would like to get a little bit further away from Rhode Island sometimes. But I'm very fortunate, I think, to be in the Rhode Island.
Well, I'm fascinated by your background because, we've had other musicians on the show here who have turned out to be brilliant artists as well. So I'm looking forward to hearing your story. You added poetry to your resume there in the introduction. What's the background for the poetry? Are you published?
I am working on that, actually. So when I went to college, I was definitely exposed to a lot of poetry. I used to write, writing songs. It was like songwriting is very closely linked to poetry. I feel like. So I definitely, when I was in college, I was exposed by taking a lot of English classes and poetry classes. And I read a lot of great poetry, and I kind of had that in the back burner, So when I graduated and I was singing and I was also doing, I started doing art. I was always very fascinated with William Blake and how he paired the poetry with paintings. And so I definitely wanted to create a project like that. So right now I have about 40 poems that I've written, and I am in the works doing ekphrastic poetry project. So I had started writing with a writing coach, and her name was Valerie Duff, and I am working on completing that and figuring out, which route to take. So that is my current project. But of course, I'm always painting. But
I'm thinking now your musical background, singer-songwriter, And the putting together with the poetry, does this mean you're going to put music to the poetry in the end?
No. That would be a good thing. I know I could do that. I could sing the music and, sing the word lyrics and then have it the painting there. But I don't know. I might be a little bit too much. But yeah, definitely. It's what I'm working on currently besides the paintings.
Where do all these creative genes come from then? I know you have some artists in the family, but is that the catalyst for this? What was the start of all your creativity?
Well, it's definitely in the it definitely runs in the family. My great grandmother, she was actually a Zorian, and she moved to Bristol with my great grandfather, and they started a bakery business. But when she was in her 70s, she started painting. So she really didn't paint until she was in her 70s. And everyone called her the local Grandma Moses because everyone was like, wow, like, where did that come from? And so she was painting up until she died in her 80s. And I luckily have some of her paintings. And then, so my grandfather, who was her son, on my father's side, my father's father, trying to make sure that we can follow that. He basically was in World War II, and he was he was in the military police. He was under General Patton, and he wasn't artistic or creative. He was very cold. So my father was very artistic. And when he grew up with my grandfather, it wasn't really encouraged because it was, okay, you're going to take over the bakery business. So my father was working in the bakery from a young age, but he was he was very much involved in art in high school, and he actually got a Scholastic Award, and he had gotten a full scholarship to, I believe it was RISD, but no one's clarifying the college that he had gotten the full scholarship to, I imagine, because I don't really know many art colleges around right in Rhode Island. So his father actually discouraged him, and he basically was like, you're going to take over the business. So he didn't encourage him. So my father ended up taking over the bakery, and he didn't really paint again. But my father was very creative. He actually taught himself how to play the piano. He taught himself how to play the guitar. And it was in his side of the family as well, where it was the Portuguese side, where they actually used to all get together and jam. So they were very musical, and there was a lot of art. So, so my father didn't get to really do it, but here I am. So I'm painting a lot, and so that I would think that's where a lot of my creative genes come from, for sure.
So when did your Portuguese ancestors then arrive in the States, Jamie?
I would say it was in the early 1900s, because I know that my great grandfather opened up their bakery in 1929, and I know he had. My great-grandfather, Manuel, he had actually opened up an ice cream business in Massachusetts, before that. So I am imagining it's around that, a little bit before that time. So I would definitely say in the 1920s, they came here. So my grandfather, Ribeiro, the one that was in the war, he was from the mainland Portugal, and my great-grandmother was from the Azores.
So you have some Mediterranean influence then. Does that come across in your art?
I would say that when I look at a lot of that type of artwork, there's an impressionist kind of thing that I saw in my grandmother's artwork. I do have I would say I have realism in there. And I think I definitely get my father, when I saw his paintings, he was kind of more abstract. So he had an abstract style, but there was a little bit of realism in there, but I definitely have more realism.
Well, I was thinking of your color palette.
Yes. I love color. I love ranges of color. I know that a lot of artists tend to stick to a limited palette. I actually I tried to do that with one of my paintings. It was actually my self-portrait. I called it pensive. I actually did the Zorn palette where I stuck to a very limited palette. And I definitely think you can see the difference in some of my other portraits to that one. But yeah, so I definitely like a range of colors. So I usually will just paint what I see, and I like to go crazy, and just when I have my palette out, I just mix a ton of colors. Like I don't stop, because I don't know why. A lot of people I've worked with, they say, oh, I try to stick to a limited. It actually helps the viewer when you kind of keep it smaller, but no, I definitely love to work with a lot of color.
I'm curious now what your studio is like, the atmosphere you create in your studio, because when you combine the music, and I don't know if you have music while you're working, but the tones, the colors, the palette you're working with, the rhythms of the work that you're doing, the rhythms of the music, how that might influence you. It's a combination of all of those.
Yes.
When you combine music and art, right? It's a very strong combination, can be very powerful. And also the different mediums you use. You don't just stick to one medium either, do you? So paint us a picture of what your studio looks like and feels like when you're painting.
So I actually love to listen to, being a musician, I actually love to listen to music that you can't really put in a type of genre. I like, I don't know if you know Enigma, but like that's a type of band that I love to listen to when I am painting, because I like to be pretty, I'm trying to find the word, but I like to be pretty open. I like the music to sound visceral. Like I like to tap into a visceral part of me when I'm painting. I just like when I play certain music, I love it to be intense. I love it to be raw. I don't know. I just want to be free. I actually don't listen to music that I feel is too much in one genre, if that makes any sense at all. My studio, it's actually in a sunroom. I have watercolor, oil. I have a lot of different mediums that I use. I don't like to limit myself to one. And I actually self-taught myself how to use all of them. I definitely don't like restriction. That's something that I feel kind of follows me with whatever I do, whether it's music, art, or mediums, or if that makes any sense at all.
Being in a sunroom, does that mean you have ample light from different directions?
Oh, yes. Definitely a lot of... Sometimes I have to make sure I move myself because the light can be a little too bright.
What's your favorite time of day, night to paint and observe the outdoor light?
I would say in the late afternoon. I would say the late afternoon, definitely. I do run into a problem when it gets close, like in evening, with my lighting, because I do have a fluorescent lighting and I definitely need to fix that. I bought another type of lighting that you can change the tone, whether you want it to be cooler or warmer, because that can affect my painting. So sometimes I have to make sure that I don't get in there when it's too bright or when it's too dark.
And what sort of routine do you have then painting? Do you like to paint every day?
Yes, I love to paint every day. The only times I don't paint is when I have something going on, but I'm basically an artist. I just go, if I leave the house, it's often to find inspiration. So, yeah, it's like I'm obsessed with it. I feel bad for my family. We try to have conversations and it always ends up about art. and I just talk about my projects and, I'm really in that season of my life where I'm just creating, just really creating.
Now, let's go back to where it all began, because you were born in Providence, Rhode Island in 1981. You're one of three girls. So where do you fit in?
I am the oldest. I'm the oldest, and I was very bossy.
Is that what your sisters would say?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And also what's funny is when I went into Wellesley College, I had found out that most of the women there were the eldest children. It was the statistics, we learned that statistics that most of them were the eldest children of the family. So it's funny that, yeah, I fit that stereotype. And yeah, my sisters were definitely, when I was younger, I feel so bad because I was so bossy. So I wasn't mean. I just liked to lead. And I grew up in the 80s and 90s. And, in the 90s when the cameras were those giant cameras, the home video cameras, I used to like to make movies, so I would be the director. I would direct these movies for the family, and I would be like, okay, so you're going to do this and you're going to do that. And, yeah, so I was definitely always trying to lead.
Was that possibly a profession that might have appealed to you?
I might have. The challenge I have is technology. I'm not very technically advanced. I think that would cause a problem for me. But yeah, I never really thought about that. I was always, when I was little, the two things that I used to do were like write songs, sing. And when I used to be in the bakery as a little girl, my parents we were too young to have us working in the back. So I used to sit at the desk that was in the middle room, and there was parchment paper, and I used to draw on it. So I used to just sit there and draw. So that was the start of me drawing and painting. That's something that that was when I knew that I definitely was artistic, and then I would make up songs everywhere I went. So those are the things that I used to do when I was younger that gave me an idea where my talents may lay. But I think I just liked leading them. I think so. I think that's why I was using the video camera, and it was a creative outlet. It was a creative way to do something.
Thinking of the moving images, you were making movies.
Yeah.
Images, photography. Was photography per se, was that an interest?
Not as much. I mean, I end up doing that now when I want to make a project. So I ended up having to learn how to take great pictures because of composition for my artwork. So if I want to paint something, I have to photograph and be pretty good at that. But I definitely like I definitely in the beginning when I used to photograph things, I didn't feel that I was that great at it, which is, I think it's because you have to really learn composition. You have to really understand what makes a picture look good. So I think with art, I've had to learn because I could paint anything. And if it's not a good composition, it's not going to be a good painting. So I've had to teach myself. So I didn't do that when I was younger. So I wouldn't have thought that, photography would be something that I would have pursued, if that makes sense, how I'm explaining that.
Well, now, were these some of your favorite subjects at school then? Art and music?
Yeah, art and music was definitely were my favorite subjects. I was very much into history. I loved history and English as well.
Sport?
No, unfortunately, I wasn't into sports. I guess it was because I didn't really have sports in my family. My father actually was a champion wrestler at his high school, but that's about it in my family. So I wasn't really exposed to sports. So I wasn't really, I love to dance, of course, because that has some, that goes along with music. So I did dance a lot, but I wasn't into.
Would you say now, looking back, that you were a precocious child, that you wanted the limelight, you wanted to sing and dance and be the leader, be the center of attention? Were you that kind of young girl, do you think?
Well, I think what I think when I was younger, I say this with all love to my family. My family, they were very hard to impress. And so I think that I really taught myself how to master things because I always felt like I needed to improve to get their approval. So I think that is where I started to become like a perfectionist. And, I always felt this need to share and express myself. And I think sometimes people would say, "Oh, you're just a ham," because and I was just like, I don't know, am I a ham? But I just like love to sing. I love to share my feelings, and I think that's what really is at the core of an artist. I think you just feel like you have all these things you want to express, and you find tools and ways to share them. When I was younger, I definitely just tried to do whatever I could to get out there. I actually remember when I was in the back of the bakery, when I was real young, I think I was like 7, might have been. I actually would get, obviously I was bored because I was in the back of a bakery and I really didn't have, they wouldn't let me do anything with them because it's dangerous. I did go to school, but these are the times that I wasn't in school. I basically would go down the street to the library and by myself, and I would sign myself up to whatever they had as an activity. It was Rogers Free Library. They had you could orate things or you could act in something they were having. And I did that. And I remember one time there was a dress shop down the street. And I went down there and I spoke to the lady who owned it, and I can't recall her name. I was so little. But I brought these pictures of fashion, like of this, dresses, like women in dresses. And I was like, would you hang that up in your store? And she was like, oh, yes. So I remember when I was really little, I had these drawings hanging up in the store, by the dressing room. So I was a little entrepreneur. I got my drawings in there. But yeah, I was definitely always trying to share whatever I could with, like, whether it be singing or writing, dancing. I just always had that incessant need. I don't know where it comes from. But yeah, I was accused of being a ham.
So self-confident then for a young girl. You were very confident.
Yes. I don't know where that came from, but yeah, I just did it. I am slightly extroverted. So I don't know. That definitely helps, I think. I also have a lot of business people in my family on my mother's side. My mother's side, my grandfather owned a jewelry company, and they were very business oriented. And I think that I get a lot of my extrovert nature from that too, from that side of the family, because my father's side was very reserved. Yeah. So I think that kind of helped me a lot with that.
Do you think that comes across in your art? Do you think that's what people would say about your art? How bold those, your portraits are particularly very bold, very full-size figures. Would that reflect the extrovert in you?
Possibly with the subject, the material, the colors. I I don't know if I mentioned to you, I don't know if I told you, but I was also a makeup artist, a freelance makeup artist for many years. And I think that the color comes across with also the boldness and, a lot of the portraits. Because I really learned to mix well with that and portraits. I've had a lot of tactile experience working on people's faces. I think the extroversion also, I don't know. I don't know if you could see it in my painting. I definitely think it comes across with when I try to get myself out there. I'm not afraid to speak to gallery owners or just put myself out there. I'm not shy at all. As a musician, I had to sing in front of large audiences and but the interesting thing of that is that I actually did not like to speak and make small talk when I would sing. Like I didn't like to, before a set or song, a singer will kind of like make small talk. I was really terrible at that because I'm a very authentic person. So I was terrible at that. But back to portraits. I know I'm going all off. I told you I might do that. But I think maybe it does come through with my portraits.
Now, you talked about your music and your art kind of happening around the same time as a child. You were busying your mind with both things. But what would you say was your priority then as an emerging adult, in your formative years? What was driving you most?
Well, definitely music. Because you really, for music as a vocalist, you only need yourself. You only need your voice. And being in a family where they were very busy working in the business all the time, I didn't have access to, oil paints and, tools and brushes and stuff like that. And you kind of need to have someone around you that is actively doing that to kind of get into that. And with music, I could just go in my room and just sing for hours and perfect it. And I would also have a lot of possibilities where there were recitals, and something that really helped me was in the bakery. My parents had a family friend who was an accountant. He was very close to them, and he used to see me in the back doing all this this drawing and singing. And I was very precocious. So I would ask them if he could take me to museums and singing lessons, and he took me to concerts. So basically I was trained by him taking me to vocal coaches and bringing me to places where I could actually perform. So that helped me a lot. And then I stuck with music until I was in my late 30s. But I actually did a lot of, obviously I was a singer for most of my life. And when I was older, I was in many bands. My music career took off. The only thing that kind of hindered me with that was I did have my family at a young age, my husband and I, and I couldn't really, I made the decision not to go very far. I had an offer to open up for a Grammy award-winning band and just follow them and tour across the states. And I made the decision. My daughter was very young. I think she was 2 or 3, and I made the decision that I would rather do local venues and rather than leave her. So that was where that ended up staying for a while. I was doing local venues in some pretty nice places. I did that for my main career until I was in my late 30s.
Were there any I wish I had moments then when you look back at your musical career?
No, obviously I thought about that over the years because my daughter's 20, going to be 24, and music was my passion, but I really think things happen for a reason because I've evolved, and I think art, where everything has led me, art is really, I've realized who I am. Art is what I love to do. And, when I was a singer and I did makeup, I felt like I wasn't in control, because there was always, a set list that somebody else wanted me to do. When I was in a band, it was like, this is what we want you to wear. This is how we want you to look. Everything. It wasn't as much about my craft at certain points, and I didn't really have the control. And I feel like with art, I have total control over my environment, and I can pick what I want to paint. And, I have this like saying that I feel with this. And I think it's like, it's empowering to like create the beauty rather than be the beauty, because when I was working in makeup, it was like the focus was on aesthetics and, an ideal, you're painting a face. And then with music, it may have been the time I was performing that it was very, very, like everyone focused on your appearance. And as a singer, I think people are better about that now, I've noticed, but like, I really enjoy being able to create my own art and just, I'm total control.
It's expression, isn't it? It's a different form of expression.
Yes.
And as to how much you have control over that expression. Even if it's a song, you may have written the song, there are other elements then that, join together, right, to create that performance.
Yes.
Whereas, as you say, with your art, it is just you, it's all about you, and there's no other influence in the final output of that.
Exactly. And I really love that. And I love to be able to be in my own world and just paint what I feel. And no one's telling me, no, do that. Don't wear that. I understand that there are musical fields and where people have complete control. But for me, in the time frame I was in music and, what kind of music genres I sang in, it was different. And so when I look back, I definitely feel that everything happened for a reason. And I'm glad that I got to express myself that way. And I still will sing if I find the right opportunities, but I definitely realize I need to put my focus on one lane. And that's art right now. And obviously I can kind of use the elements that I had with singing and songwriting, doing poetry. So it's like another way to express myself. So now I can do the poetry with the art. So I just love to be able to use these tools to express myself.
You were a recording artist. You still have music in the public domain. Is there more music that
yes,
maybe got buried and may see the light of day over time?
Possibly. I do have music that's buried. And I always will, I always have the urge to create. I always have the urge to write more songs. I still love it. But at the time, definitely need to focus on the artwork.
What do you miss about that former career?
Being right up with people, the engagement with people. I could see the effect I have when I'm singing in live time. It's nice to know that you're putting something out in the world and it's being received. So when I would sing and I would see people get emotional or, and I would kind of like go off of that. So when they would, when I would see that I was affecting them, then it would affect me. It was great when it was a live audience and there was like so much energy and, the energy is just going back and forth. It was terrible nights when I would sing somewhere and, it was a quiet night. That was painful because as a singer, when you're singing and there's not really anything there, it's like, okay, but when it was like lively, and there was a lot of people, and it was going back and forth. It was really great. That is the only thing I really miss about that. With artwork, it's kind of like you're putting it out there and you're affecting people, but you're not really 100% sure how they're receiving it unless you get feedback, and they might look at it when you're not there. So that's the thing that I think I miss about that.
Recently, I watched the documentary "I Am" Celine Dion. I don't know if you've watched that yet.
No, I've been meaning to. I know I have to gear myself. I know I have to prepare myself because I've read that it can be very painful to watch at some points.
It's very raw, very authentic, very vulnerable. Yeah, it's a wonderful documentary, and it's extremely brave of her. But I mentioned it only that she talks about how much she misses her fans, the connection with the people that have been loyal to her over many years during her career.
Yes.
And that connection, it was heart-wrenching to watch her reaction to that, her response to the people that have made her what she is.
Yes.
And I can imagine that it isn't just the feedback. It is that she needs that. She needs the music. She needs that expression. She needs the audience. It bounces off, right? As you say, if you sing to an empty auditorium, you're just not going to get the vibes, obviously.
Yeah.
But I'd imagine that, too, is something you might miss.
Yes. And also you learn about yourself when you see how, when you're singing and you see how it affects people, and if people are enjoying it, you look at that and you say, okay, well, this is right. This is a good note. This is whatever I'm doing is great. The thing I forgot to mention that I also miss about it is when I would sing, it definitely was a release. I would get it. As an artist and someone who is always thinking and always taking in information, you end up kind of like taking in so much, and you need to release. You just need to release. And singing for multiple hours, I would get that. With art, I get a different kind. It's not the same. It's I don't know how to explain that, because when you're painting, you're getting satisfaction, but it's not like this, just getting that song out and just releasing that energy. And with painting, it's kind of like you're taking in a lot. So that is something that, besides the energy going back and forth, that is something that I do miss. But at the same time, I really love just being able to control my environment and just kind of explore my inner world and just paint what I feel and see of something. I think I'm an idealist, and I think that's how I've coped my whole life, is just seeing everything in the best way possible. So when I'm painting, I can kind of take certain things and kind of utilize that, and paint something in the ideal way, the way I see it, the best way I see it. I think that's why I think some of my portraits can be effective, because I kind of see somebody's face and I talk to them, or I can kind of see their gestures, and I feel like I could see something in them that I find admirable, and kind of put that in the painting the best way I can. So if they have a nice smile, I might emphasize that a smidge. So I love doing that with art. I don't really think I can do that with music, but yeah.
Is painting a performance for you in a way?
I actually feel like it when I'm painting, and that's when the playlist comes into play. I feel like if I put on a song that evokes a lot of emotion in me, I kind of sometimes find myself painting. The paintbrush kind of moves with the music. It's like a dance. Like I'll start dancing the paintbrush.
Yeah, the rhythms then kick in, right? The rhythms of the music, the rhythm becomes then the painting.
Yes. And what's interesting is sometimes I look back at a painting, And I remember the song I was listening to when I was painting it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember the emotions. I remember, it's like, it's strange. I can't remember a lot anymore, but I'm like, I remember what I was doing. I remember the lighting. I remember the song. So, yeah.
You're painting a picture in your mind as well as painting a picture.
Yes.
Influenced by the rhythm of the music.
Yes. That's why it's very important for me to have music that I connect to. And that's why I also like to have music that I feel doesn't really have a genre, or sometimes I don't even want to hear vocals because my musical sense will kick in and I'll sit there and critique the vocals, or I'll start to kind of go into my music side. And I'm just like, you know what? I just need something that just has like mainly vocals, because I never played an instrument. So I like to hear almost instrumental music when I'm painting.
That's interesting. I was going to ask if you played anything.
No, I just sang. I had like I have, but 4.5 octaves. I was really dedicated to mastering my voice. And I had done classical and R&B, soul, jazz. I did study some under Chris Adams at Wellesley. I did some jazz there. So I definitely just focused on my voice. Thank God, because the way that I go all over the place, if I started doing instruments, I would have definitely not known where to go, because I need to focus on something. So I was like, I'm focusing on my voice, and this is my craft.
You mentioned Wesley there, Wesley College, where you did your Bachelor of Arts.
Yes.
What was college life like for you, and what are your happiest memories now as you look back on those days?
Oh, it's very interesting for me because I went as an older student. I wasn't much older. I think I was 20, 25. I had a scholarship. I was a Davis Scholar. I had gotten in because I had my daughter young, and I had a family young. So I actually went in when I had a family, and it was 45 minutes away. I lived 45 minutes away, and I would drive there every day going full time, and I would get my daughter to school, and then I would go to college. I'd come home, we'd get food on the table, and then on the weekends I was singing. So life was totally different for me than the traditional students, and they actually respected that. They would always say how much they admired the Davis Scholars, because it was very hard for me to do that. So I didn't really get to live the traditional college life there. But fortunately, the professors were they were inspired by that, and I had a lot of psychology professors working with me, and they knew I had something different to offer to the table. But yeah, my college life went by very fast, but I was very proud when I got in. I definitely wanted to go to college when I was younger, and I got to do that. And I think my musical and creative abilities helped me, because I definitely applied and put all that information down. But college life was great, and I was exposed to a lot of great ideas and people that I wouldn't have been exposed to, like the poetry. I read a lot of poetry, and obviously psychology, because that was what I majored in. So yeah, that was how my college life was. Very interesting and different experience.
Let's join at the dots, though, from when you graduated high school, because you said you married early when you met James, your husband.
Yes.
So join at the dots. What were you doing after high school before you got married and went to college?
After college, I actually went to, after college, I'm sorry, after high school, I was singing, and that's when I was just doing my music career, and that's when my daughter was young, and I had gotten an offer to tour, and, it was going to take off, and I decided I couldn't do that because I just didn't want to leave my family. So I was trying to figure out a way to express myself. So I ended up I got my master aesthetics license. So that enabled me to be a makeup artist. So I started doing makeup. And so I was singing still. I was singing at venues. I was doing weddings, and I was making decent money doing that. And then with the makeup. And I wasn't really fulfilled. I wanted to go to college. I've always been an intellectual in the fact that I'm always very curious and I'm always reading. And I just wanted to explore that. And also that I was always fascinated by the human psyche, and I just always wanted to learn about people. And that seems to be the overarching theme with everything I do is, working with people, singing to people, doing painting people in portraits. So I went to Wellesley so that I could do my psychology. And I was going to become a psychologist, but that kind of like, I ended up just doing art. So before I went to college, that was kind of what I was doing. I was raising my daughter and I was getting a license and I was doing makeup and singing.
So how old were you when you started performing then? Was that in high school or even earlier?
I was performing at the age of 13. I was, taking advantage of all the stuff I had in school. I had done all state, and I had, I had done some events at a convention center that was there in front of thousands of people. And I was always performing wherever I could. I remember, I don't know if you remember Tiny Tim.
Yes, I do.
Yeah. I was actually in the local, it was 92 Pro FM. It's a radio station, and I was in there singing, and his manager came in and they heard me and they wanted me to join them, I guess, for an event they were having. And so, yeah, I was doing that. And I don't know what happened. I remember that they had sent a limo to my house to go to the event. And for some reason, I think I got ill, but I just ended up not going. And I didn't really, I don't know. I just didn't feel something about it. Didn't feel like something I want to do. I felt like I was too young. I think I was like, I don't know if I was 13, 14. So I had gotten a lot of opportunities. So I was performing when I was real young. And I think, yeah, so that was what I was doing. And, I had my daughter, I was turning 18. So I think I was working at Nordstrom because I had a part-time job, and I had been offered to open up for John Cicada. And I think I had just found out, this was when I was 17. I just found out that I was pregnant. And so I was like, well, I can't do that. So I was performing for many years of my life.
How did you meet James?
Actually through my friend, the accountant, the family friend. He's the one that, yeah, he met him and he said, oh, I know a great guy. He was in a restaurant. Because I think my husband was, I think he was 19. I'm trying to remember how old he was. But he was working in a restaurant and he had met him and he introduced me to him. He thought he was a great guy. And I've known him now my husband for 25 years.
And where did you get married?
In Bristol, Rhode Island. I got married actually at Linden Place, right across the street from where my parents' bakery was. I don't know if you know that mansion.
Yes.
It's a historical mansion. Yep. We got married there. It was a beautiful wedding.
And here you are.
Yes.
2024.
I know. I would say 25 years is a long time for somebody who's 42. I feel much older than I am. That's all I can say.
In terms of artistic expression, then the poetry seems to be important too. Now that's playing a significant role in your life. What are you expressing yourself? What is the main theme, would you say, of poetry?
Oh, I do different themes. I like to touch upon the deeper things that I really want to express. For instance, I have a poem where there is a painter. I think I don't remember which part of England he's escaping me, but he wasn't a known painter at the time, but he's actually becoming known. It was Wilfred Jenkins, and he was painting nocturnes, and I was very fascinated by it. And so I painted his picture. I painted a master copy of his painting, and I was very intrigued by it. And I wanted to also write about it as well. So I found it very fascinating, the difference between the lighting of the 21st century and like how in nocturnes in, I think that was the late 1800s, how it was like candlelight versus nowadays it's all neon fluorescent lighting and kind of like in the I would say like in the beginning of the industrial age. So I kind of like to explore that in a poem because I really wanted to touch upon industrialization and the modern day and age. And I just wanted to kind of put those together. And I felt like poetry, I could do that, like the way I could write it. Because I don't know if that's why I like poetry, because you can put a lot of what you want to say into something, whereas it's things that is hard to express in just writing a paper, a manuscript. I don't know how to explain what I'm saying, but I just feel like I can really tap into deep subjects or deep thoughts in a poem. And I just, it says more than me just doing a master copy of painting. I actually did another one that kind of related to his painting. I took an old building that looked like it was from the 1800s and I modernized it. So I really wanted to use art and poetry to kind of like explore what I was feeling and what his painting was evoking in me. So I like to I'm not really limited to what I write poetry about. There's some things in my life that were very deep and things that are hard to talk about. And I feel like I can do them in poetry, and I use poetry as kind of like therapy. So I think that's what I kind of explore in poetry. I think with poetry, I really attack the raw, and I told you that I like ideal. I'm an idealist, and I feel like with my painting, a lot of the time I'm trying to create beauty, and it's not just pretty things, but I try to find beauty in everything. But I feel like with poetry, I can really tap into everything, the ugly, the raw, so I feel like with poetry, I can just tap into everything, if that makes any sense at all. But that's why I really like doing that.
I would imagine your dinner time conversations are very interesting too, because you mentioned that both your husband and your daughter are artistic.
Yes.
And you anticipate that may emerge even more with time.
Yes.
But you're very different, professional backgrounds.
Yes.
What kind of things emerge from the dinner table? Are you allowed to talk about your art and your poetry? Do you get them to critique it?
Well, it's very interesting because they have a good eye. I can ask them. I ask them all the time, what do you think of this? What do what would you change? They really do have a great eye. Actually, I've brought them out to plein air events and they have painted. So, when they actually like to discuss art, I sometimes have to calm down though, because I do have to ask them about about their jobs and what's going on with their jobs. But I just, they really like to talk about it, and we discuss, a lot of what I'm doing or what I should do, or they give me advice. And I'd say my daughter's the toughest critic. I'd say she doesn't hold back. She definitely has an eye for things. And I'm really excited because I just found out today that I got into the Providence Art Club as an exhibiting artist, and I can bring them to a lot of the events. And so I'll definitely be bringing them, and we'll be having dinner there. And I don't know if you know the Providence Art Club.
And so these events are going to take place this year?
Yes, yes.
Where else can we see your work, Jamie?
I have a couple of exhibits coming up. I have one in Middletown, Rhode Island, that's going to be at the Blog Gallery, and that's in September. And then I have the Greenville Library in Smithfield, Rhode Island. That's going to be in December. And I'm lining up the schedule. But yeah, so those are the things that are coming up right now.
But if you're painting every day, you're writing poetry regularly, how do you relax?
I don't think I do. Yeah, no.
I was wondering that. You seem to be very high energy.
Yes, unfortunately. It's a good thing for being an artist, but, I try to relax, but then I find myself thinking of painting. So I'm like, oh, well I'll say, I'm going to relax. I'm going to go by the water. And then I start taking my camera out to take a picture of the water. I say, wow, that would be a great painting. And so I start painting. I start bringing it home to paint. So yeah, I don't mind it though. I mean, I don't mind it. I do get relaxed I will tell you when I get relaxed. I get relaxed when my painting is coming along. So when I'm in the middle of a painting and I think it's going well, then I relax and have fun. It's never relaxing in the beginning though, because I don't know how the painting's going to come about, or, if I'm doing what I want to do. And yeah.
Do you take commissions, Jamie?
Yes.
So how do you cope with the pressure?
I don't know if it's a fault, but like, I don't get nervous. The funny story is that the way I started painting was because I had already been doing art with my, makeup, and I knew I could draw. I actually took a commission before I even picked up a paintbrush. I actually said to my friend, because she liked artwork, I said, you know what? I'll paint you a picture.
That's very bold.
I did. And then, yeah, I'm telling you, I don't know. Maybe it is a fault. I don't know. But I did it. And I was like, wow, look. And she was like, wow. And I was like, I guess I knew. And I obviously wouldn't have continued if it was horrible. But the only thing that was bad that came out of it is that I wasn't really aware of how toxic oil paint was at that time. So I learned that after, that you really shouldn't get it all over you. But, I've learned that was many years ago. So yeah, I feel like if I start to worry about it, it will affect it. I try to have confidence, and the more I do it, the more confident I get. And it's very, I've had to deal with a lot, doing makeup or singing, when you do have a client that's unhappy. So I've learned to just kind of let it in one ear and out the other. Like, you listen, because, they could have a point. But I've learned to kind of like just brush it off my shoulders. And so it has kind of followed me to this day. So when I go to do something, I just kind of do it, and I don't get hung up on it.
You get asked by friends at weddings to do the makeup and perform?
I actually, yeah, my friend, I had done her makeup for her wedding. And I did sing recently. Oh, it was not recently, but maybe it was a year or 2 years ago. I did sing for my cousin, but I kind of don't take those on anymore. I just kind of say I'm an artist now, because I can't be all over the place just focusing on my art.
Do you find time for dance?
Not as much as I'd like to. I definitely would like to. My husband and I had done a dance. We had went to Arthur Murray, and we actually performed a dance routine. It was very fun. That was definitely fun. I did that. We actually did that in pre-COVID. I think it was 2020. We did a recital where we did a dance routine. It was really fun, but I haven't done since.
What are you looking forward to most this year? Maybe the next 2 or 3 years?
I am looking forward to taking as many classes as I can with the new club I'm in, and just getting out as much work as I can. Just, I know this sounds really like cliche, but I just want to paint. I just want to keep painting and finding more and more material. And I really, I would say it's really been taking off in the last year. So I just look forward to creating my best work, making a more cohesive portfolio, learning as much as I can. So yeah, I would say I think I'm right in the middle in the swing of things right now. So I think that's what I'm definitely looking forward to, is just getting better and finding more and more subjects to paint.
Well, it's absolutely beautiful work, Jamie. So long may it last.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Don't forget to scroll down the show notes for a link to Jamie's website and her social media, and also to our Instagram. You can give us a follow there, drop any comments or suggestions for guests. We always love to hear from you. And I will be back next week when my guest will be the cinematographer Alicia Robbins. So I do hope you'll join me then.